Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Women's Wellness Center Speaker Series. My name is Jess Posner, and I am the Director of Virtual Programs of the YMCA of Central New York. And I'm really excited to be hosting this event tonight from the YMCA's Northside Women's Wellness Center. And I'm just going to spotlight myself real quick here for everybody. There we go. All right. Okay. Well, I am really excited about tonight. It is the final in a 4-part series focusing on women's wellness. We began in the first week of February and have had a really beautiful series of speakers and attendees who have joined us to speak about a wide range of women's health and wellness. And we're going to continue that on tonight. Tonight's guests include the incredible Keturah Cochren-Albright, Keonna Yearwood, and Heather Shannon, who I will introduce individually soon once we begin with their presentations. I first just want to express an incredible amount of gratitude for all of the speakers and attendees for making this series such a success. It is the first time that we've done a virtual speaker series at the YMCA of CNY, and I'm really excited to continue offering programming like this. Later this week, I'll be sending out a follow-up email with a survey, and I'd like to ask that everybody please respond to give us feedback about your experience with this series and also suggestions for the other kinds of virtual programming that you might be interested in. My role here at the YMCA is actually as the Director of Virtual Programming and Member Services, and I joined the YMCA just under 4 months ago, and I'm really happy to be growing our virtual programs to include live and on-demand fitness classes, virtual social opportunities, academic support, arts programming, and then series such as this. So if you're curious about the virtual YMCA, please reach out to me. You can email me at virtual@ymcacny.org, and I'd be happy to give you a virtual tour or help you get oriented, whether you are a member or not quite yet. So we will be releasing all of the events in this series on the YMCA of Central New York's YouTube and virtual Y On Demand channel on March 8th on occasion of International Women's Day. So it'll be a nice opportunity to revisit anything that you would like to revisit or to share with anyone within your network. In March, we will also be hosting another speaker series, this time with the Syracuse Orthopedic Surgeons, SOS, focusing on bone and joint health. So if you are interested in more information on that, again, you can get in contact with me, check out our Virtual Y website, and I'll also include that link in my follow-up email to you all as well. So why are we here? For those of you that have joined us every week, this will be maybe a little bit familiar, but I want to go ahead and share this context for anyone that might be joining us for the first time. This series is presented by the YMCA of Central New York, following up on interest expressed by community residents engaged by Northside UP, St. Joseph's Health, and the many community partners that collaborated in the creation of the new YMCA Northside Women's Wellness Center located at 900 North McBride Street in Syracuse, New York. The February 2021 YMCA Virtual Women's Wellness Speaker Series focuses on topics at the intersection of women's wellness, health and wellness topics affecting the Black community, and caring for the heart, broadly defined. Our speakers include women medical providers, health professionals, and community wellness experts who have firsthand experience of the transformative potential of building a life of wellness. We are convening tonight to celebrate the opening of the YMCA's new Northside Women's Wellness Center, which I think has been open to the public for just about a month now. And we're really excited about our new extended hours, which just started last week. So we are open Monday through Thursday from 5:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then Fridays from 5:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. For those that have joined us weekly, you know that every week we broadcast from a different room of the facility as like a little mini tour. You can get the experience a little bit. This is our group fitness room that I am in. Last week, Javonna Rucker was in here, but I just want to like give you a little bit of like a video tour. I'm in the back corner, but you can kind of get an idea with all the mirrors and the kinds of equipment that we have. Tons of stuff that is here to support your fitness and wellness journey for our group exercise classes. So it's a great space, really beautiful lighting, beautiful floors, great mirrors, and I hope that you will join us someday in here for a fitness class. As I do every week, I'd also like to just tell you a little bit about the center and how it came to be. So the project began with Center State CEO through its Northside UP program, which facilitated a community collaborative to design, develop, and launch the Northside YMCA Women's Wellness Center. First imagined in 2013 during a series of community engagement meetings facilitated by Northside UP and St. Joseph's Health, the new center offers a safe and culturally welcoming space for women from the Northside and greater Syracuse area to exercise, access community resources, and connect with neighbors. It will offer short-time child watching services, allowing women the opportunity to focus on their health and well-being while in the space. And if you're interested in learning more about that, get in touch. The entire project was designed through a diverse cross-section of Northside residents and community partners who directly informed program design, project location, and architectural design, business model, partner identification, and fundraising. Northside UP also helped to secure the project site, led to the effort to raise $1.5 million in funds for construction and operating costs, and recruited the YMCA to become owner and operator of the center. Working together, community residents and other stakeholder partners are helping to ensure the center continues to be welcoming to women of all cultures, abilities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. So if you are interested in scheduling a tour or visit to the Northside Women's Wellness Center, I am going to put some information here in the chat for you. And you can schedule an in-person tour, or we can chat with you on the phone. And you can also join online if you're interested in being a member. If you are not yet a YMCA member, you do have until February 8th to use our special code, Northside WWC, to waive the joining fee. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at virtual@ymcacny.org, and I'll do my best to answer those questions or direct you to the person who can. There's also the website for the virtual Y there if you want to check it out. We've got a lot of partners. And we're so grateful for them. And I just want to, again, express my gratitude for everyone that made this series as well as this center possible. And so please come check it out. Okay, so for tonight's program, to let you know how it's going to go, and then I'm going to introduce our first speaker. So tonight we have 3 speakers. Each speaker will speak for about 20 minutes or so, one after the next. Keturah Cochren-Albright will speak first. When she is finished with her presentation, I'll introduce Kiana Yearwood, and then following Kiana, Heather Shannon will speak. After all of these presentations, we'll have a combined Q&A. So if you have any questions, you can go ahead and paste them in the chat. And what I'll be doing is I'll actually be collecting them in a document, and then during that group Q&A, I will pose those to the specific folks, or as we found throughout the month, most of the questions are applicable to all of our guests. So feel free to paste those as we go in the chat. Our program may run a little longer than it usually does, which is about 7:30, just because of the fact that we have 3 speakers tonight, but we'll definitely be done by 8 o'clock. All right, so without further ado, our first guest, who I'm so excited to have with us tonight, is Keturah Cochren-Albright, and I am going to spotlight her here with me so you guys can all see her. All right. Keturah is a native Syracusan and recent Syracuse University graduate, where she earned a dual master's degree in social work and marriage and family therapy. While working on her degrees, Keturah worked in the maternal health field as a community action coordinator for Syracuse Community Connection, aka the Southwest Center. As the CAN, she was responsible for coordinating, managing, and supervising resources and supports for doulas and clients of the community doula program and the community health workers and the clients they serve through the home visiting program. Just months into taking on this position, Keturah saw how overwhelmed the doula program was in meeting the demand for their much needed services. Inspired by the need, she also became a doula and a certified lactation counselor, recognizing that there was truly little representation of Black women in Syracuse providing lactation support. During her time in this role, she was able to identify and mitigate some of the barriers program participants and service providers had, and help to initiate and cultivate communication and relations conducive to addressing maternal health disparities. Keturah has a passion for working with and in the Syracuse community. Currently, Keturah oversees the furthering and advancement of faith community nursing within the central New York area. She identifies and connects with faith-based organizations, community leaders, and faith communities supported by this ministry. Like parish nursing, faith community nursing is a resource intended to nurture the human spirit through health education, spiritual support, and linking the needs of the whole person to resources within the congregation, community, and healthcare system. Keturah's goal is to support all communities of faith desiring the desiring to establish and support their health ministry. One of the initial steps is to educate and support faith-based organizations with information on the foundations of faith community nursing. St. Joseph's Health has established resources to provide training for faith community nursing's foundations courses. Keturah is passionate about meeting the needs of the holistic person and believes a model like faith community nursing could help address stigma, barriers, and disparities within faith-based communities and health systems. When Keturah is not with her work, she enjoys spending time with her person of 25 years, Julius, their exceptional 6 children, and an adorable granddaughter. So without further ado, Keturah, I am going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Jess. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. This series has been wonderful. I've heard some really great things and participated in a lot of these sessions. So I'm glad to be a part of this, although I'm at the end, but it worked out fine. So I'm here today to talk about faith community nursing. I don't know if you guys can get into the chat, if you want to get into the chat, or if you just want to raise your hands. I don't see a lot of screens on, that's fine. But is anybody familiar with faith community nursing or parish nursing? Nope, didn't sound like it. Okay. Well, understanding this is something unfamiliar, I believe, to a lot of individuals. It was to me. When I heard about it, became very interested and intrigued about it. The opportunity for individuals to support their members or co-members of their faith-based communities with combining spiritual support and practical health supports. It's not something common that we have every day. For the most part, we keep those two separate, right? So just to give you a little bit of an understanding, and if I read too fast, let me know if you didn't hear something. I can do that when I'm a little nervous. But the foundations of faith community nursing is rooted in a specialty of nursing that focuses on the intentional care of the spirit combined with traditional nursing practice. In the congregational setting, the faith community nurse, also known as an FCN, if you might hear me say it sometimes to cut it short, can assist members with the faith community to maintain and or regain wholeness in body, mind, and spirit. The Faith Community Nursing Program through St. Joseph's Health works with registered nurses within your congregation to provide health-related programs tailored to meet the needs of your members and or the neighborhood and community served. The relationship includes an agreement between St. Joseph's Health, the faith community, and the registered nurse. And realizing that not all faith communities are connected in their congregation to a registered nurse. There is also an extension given to others, as I'll put it, who are not just anyone else not a registered nurse. And that doesn't mean that they are less qualified, because it could also be a physician or anyone else. It just means that you're not a nurse. You would then be commissioned as a health minister. So still providing the necessary support, but just commissioned as a health minister. And I'll go into that a little bit further. So who can be a faith community nurse? To be a faith community nurse, you must be a registered nurse, as I stated, with the experience using the nursing process. Anyone else wishing to participate would be a health minister, and these individuals would be taking a course. The one in which we're providing right now, it's a 6-week course given by the University of Southern Indiana. It's a 6-week course offered virtually. And in that course, you will be given the foundations for faith community nursing. After this course is completed, you would then be commissioned either as a faith community nurse or a health minister. We are encouraging ministries, health ministries and health communities to look to have more than one individual. Historically, how it's been done, it's just there's usually one individual that would provide that support to the faith community, but realizing, especially during this pandemic, that individuals can become overwhelmed with wanting to provide support to others, but having a platform that allows for a team or partnership tends to take the burden off just one person. We've even had recently the interest of pastors and co-pastors or pastors and their husbands or wives wanting to do it as a team. And that I think is wonderful. So with that Faith Community Foundations course, for those that are nurses, they would then qualify to be given 37 contact hours for continuing education. And that certification will be mailed to you once you've completed the course. St. Joseph's is also something rare for many health communities or health organizations, is providing full funding for this course. This course is typically $500 per person. There is currently funding available to faith communities to have this funding or have this course funded 100%, as well as the other resources that come along with it. So understanding that faith community nursing takes a holistic approach to working with people within their faith-based communities with an emphasis on spirituality. So when you think about and if any of us, we may not all have the same spiritual beliefs and practices, but for those of us that are in there invested, if I might say, if you're invested in your faith community, you can probably identify individuals within the ministry whom are having challenges, maybe emotionally, spiritually, challenged with their health even. The idea that you're able to support them with information to help them address health concerns, health disparities, would then be an opportunity to help possibly mitigate the need to return to a hospital or be admitted to the hospital or visit the emergency department. And that's kind of St. Joseph's goal, is to help find additional supports for those with challenging health concerns, health issues that maybe possibly because of their spiritual beliefs, religious beliefs, may experience a barrier to using practical measures to address their health. Having someone to support you who's informed about what your beliefs are, what your maybe even religious practices are, and then be able to combine that with addressing maybe health disparities related to maybe high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, diabetes, a number of, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, but a number of health issues that individuals experience that they don't share with others. And so from my experience and my background, the churches and faith-based that I come from, it's the saying is, you pretty much just pray it away. If you pray enough, it'll go away, but it won't, and it doesn't. And these issues and concerns become exacerbated to the point that individuals sometimes have to then remove themselves from engagement with their faith communities because now they can no longer attend services. I mean, we're not in person right now, but for some individuals, they weren't able to attend before this happened because of health disparities that they experience. And so being able to use this platform, this ministry to support the church in supporting the congregation, and even the possibility of supporting leadership, just because someone is in leadership within our faith communities doesn't mean that they don't have health issues as well. And so for those that are interested, the concern sometimes is with the faith leaders around like, well, what is it that you want me to do? So as a faith leader, you can have confidence in knowing that members of your faith community are supported in their beliefs and can learn how to apply practical measures that support the health and well-being of their mind, body, and spirit. And so from engagements that I've spoken at and with others, there kind of seems to be this concern about St. Joe's coming in and taking over and trying to turn their church into a Catholic church. Their faith community into a Catholic church. That is not it at all. In fact, we want to support faith communities that are not like St. Joseph's, meaning that not necessarily having Catholicism in their background. Judaism is fine. Muslims, anyone with a faith belief that has the opportunity to have someone participate in this program and take this course would benefit from the support of having someone to be able to provide those practical health measures. And having someone within your faith community even serves you well. We've identified that not every faith community has, like I said before, the resources or the personnel on staff or as members within their congregation titled nurse, registered nurse. And so for those that are interested, we have the opportunity to connect you with a nurse that can provide that those practical measures that need to be addressed by a registered nurse. But then that would mean that you have the opportunity to register anyone else, maybe even a couple people within your ministry as health ministers. And those health ministers will be supported by that faith community nurse that we connect you with. So once you take this course, you're not left alone. You are supported by the program and the resources within the program. There's opportunities for continuing education. We have the opportunity to bring the information to your faith community. So you're not left alone to do this, disseminating this information and these resources. We are here to help. We are here to connect you to other health ministries that you can provide support to, and they can provide support to you. So the idea is to really bring the community together based on their faith. And so if you are interested, we'd ask you to feel free to reach out. We will send the information to Jess, and Jess can disseminate the information to whomever is interested. Trying to make sure I keep up time. Let me see. Are there any questions so far for me?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for all of that information. It's so informative. I mean, I, for one, had no idea that this was a service that was offered within the community and as a connection point between healthcare providers and communities of faith. And I just think that that's really so interesting, and what a beautiful way to reach people, like a really beautiful way to engage community in that way. And actually, Heather Shannon sent in a message for you to ask how long this has been offered in the community and how many faith-based organizations currently participate in the program.
So we actually are just, because of COVID, this was supposed to roll out about a year ago, but almost a year ago, but because of the coronavirus, it was halted and delayed. And so it also was intended to be a live training course. And so that had to be changed as well. So this will be the second cohort that goes through. The course actually starts on March 15th. And this will be for anyone interested. Like I said, registration deadline is March 5th, but all of this is just being established now. So we have about, I want to say it's 6 or 7 established faith community nurses that have just come out of this, or health ministers. But we're still getting things kind of boots on the ground, still getting things started. So if you are interested, please feel free to reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Do you have any final closing thoughts?
No, and the other thing is that you can take this course now and you don't have to feel rushed to implement the program into your ministry. I would encourage anyone who is interested to take the course. And it also is self-directed. So it's at your own leisure time. You just have to complete the work within that 6-week period of time. So if you know your ministry may be interested, encourage them to take the course, and then we can slowly support them to get things off the ground.
All right, cool. Thank you. And I see Heather just typing into asking about information. And I will get information about registration and how to get in contact with Keturah, and I'll send that in a follow-up email. And if I don't get it to you fast enough, you can go ahead and email me and I'll get that to you right away. And let's see, Julie did ask one question: if you have to live in Syracuse to take the course.
So it's Central New York. So if you're in the Central New York area, St. Joseph's Faith Community Nursing will support your ministry.
All right. Wonderful. What a wonderful resource. Thank you so much. I've got more questions for you for the Q&A, but we'll save them for then. So thank you so much for providing us with this really beautiful information about this wonderful nascent community resource that sounds like is going to make an incredible impact here in our Central New York community.
We hope so. Thank you.
Thanks, Katora. All right, I am going to add a spotlight with Kiana Yearwood as I introduce her. Okay. All right. So I thank you again so much, Katora, for sharing that information. It is my pleasure to introduce Kiana Yearwood to all of you today. Kiana Yearwood is a personal chef who has worked tirelessly in the areas of nutrition and food security. She is focused on ensuring that communities of color have access to affordable, quality food and food education. She believes it is imperative that people of color have the knowledge and skills to live happier, healthier lives. Her mission is to reduce the percentage of chronic illnesses in communities of color by providing communities access to free wellness programming. She attended the world-famous culinary school Johnson & Wales University, where she received 2 degrees. While attending Johnson & Wales University, she received the Emerald Lagasse Scholarship for her culinary talent. As Kiana grows in her influence in the fight for healthier communities, she shares her own experience battling obesity as a teenager and what makes her want to keep fighting the good fight. In addition to her advocacy for food security, she's an entrepreneur. She owns a meal preparation delivery service, and the mission of the delivery service is based on her passion for healthy food and the need to provide options to communities, showing them that healthy food can be affordable. Her vision is well-being for everybody, and her website is chefkeonnayearwood.com, which I'm going to paste in the chat here for anyone that would like to take a look at it. So without further ado, I turn the virtual floor space over to you, Kiana.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen a little bit here. Can I get permission?
Yes. You should be able to screen share.
I can't, but it's okay if I can't.
Oh, okay. Wait, no. We got it. It's because I was sharing Nina Simone earlier. So
okay.
You should be good now though.
Okay, thank you. So what I like to talk about, again, I'm a personal chef here in Syracuse. Just a brief introduction about me. Today we're going to be talking about the true costs of food, kind of debunking these myths that I hear a lot in the community. Just a brief intro about myself. I'm Kiana Yearwood. I'm a personal chef who specializes in food and calorie restrictions. I graduated from Johnson & Wales University. I also graduated from IIN, where I got my health coaching certification, and then I started working with dietitians to help patients implement the food protocols given to provide the best outcome for patients, as well as I currently partnered with a farm here in Syracuse, which I'll talk about more, which is Brady Farm, where I help bring resources to people who need them. So brief introduction about me. At the age of 16, I was considered morbidly obese. I was about 350 pounds. I was a 3-sport athlete as well, but I also had pre-diabetes. And in that time, me being a 3-sport athlete, people automatically assume that it would be easy for me to lose weight and stay fit, but I had no clue on how to do so. I was a great athlete, but I still was considered morbidly obese until my athletic career got cut short because I tore my ACL, and I was forced to, kind of find a different alternative, find a new way of life. And through my journey of obesity, it kind of brought me to where I am today, where I have lost about 120 pounds since age 16. And through that journey, I realized that the information that I needed wasn't provided to me. And I had to go searching for a long time for it. And I remember this one particular moment where my grandmother had just passed away from heart disease. 3 weeks later, I had a checkup and I went to the dietitian's office and she said, well, Kiana, if you don't do something now, you're gonna die just like your grandmother. And I remember sitting there crying and watching my mother cry because obesity was all I knew. Like, this is how my family looked. This is how we looked. And I just didn't know what to do. And I remember her pushing a paper in front of me and simply saying, well, you know, do this. But I was like, what is this? I see the paper. I know what the paper says. I know that you're giving me a protocol, but I don't necessarily know how to implement this at home. So in fighting the good fight, I always say through my journey, I realized that I was on a similar journey that most people kind of go through. And I said to myself, I'll never allow another person to feel the same way that I did sitting in that dietitian's office. So I made it my life journey to help people that look like me get healthy. So I'm gonna just stop sharing, wanted to share that. But there's a quote that I always live by, and it goes, whoever controls the land and the food controls the population. And that's by Leah Penema. Health has been on the forefront of the world even more this past year. We know health is valuable. We walk outside with masks because our health is valuable. It always amazes me when the topic of discussion in government is about healthcare in this country, but the conversation about people's access to fresh, nutritious food is never talked about. Our food system drives the production of processed food, which is, in my opinion, the biggest issue. I'm here today to debunk the myth that eating healthy is too expensive. I want to revise that statement by saying eating healthy processed food is too expensive. You see, stating that something is vegan, plant-based, or gluten-free is not synonymous with health. And people always ask me the question, well, Kiana, why is food expensive? And I want to kind of introduce this term called food gentrification. Food gentrification is a term used to describe how previously affordable and staple ingredients can suddenly become cool, costly, and ultimately out of reach for poor communities that depend on them. For example, the Kale Craze of 2007 to about 2012, there was a woman called Sinclair, founder of My Young Auntie PR in New York City, with a sturdy client list and in fashion and music industries. Sinclair amplified the benefits of kale with custom t-shirts, pricey salads, and celebrity endorsements. According to the Department of Agriculture, between that time, US kale production increased nearly 60% between 2007 and 2012. Now, the reality is kale is nothing new, but a lot of the times because chefs, celebrities, fashion icons, they're paid to push these things in the media, then these ingredients tend to start going up. So I always get the question on like, how do we reclaim our health? And there's one thing I realized doing the work that I do is that people don't need convincing, they need resources. And I'm hoping our small time together here today will give you tools to help you start your journey to this healthier lifestyle. And the first one I always say, reclaiming our relationship with our land. We reclaim our health by reclaiming our relationship with our land. This is for everyone. In recent weeks, I spoke to someone in the community about reclaiming our relationship with our land. And an individual said, we are not on a plantation and this is not slavery. And I completely understand why he said that. I completely understand how slavery has shaped the image of farming. I also understand that our current healthcare crisis in our communities of color were created to be this way. Many of our sustainable farming practices actually stem from African and indigenous roots. Since 1920, African-American farmers have lost over 14 million acres of land. Combine this with the fact that Black communities are at higher risk of illness due to lack of access to fresh and nutritious food. Our relationship with food and how it's processed is the biggest game changer to our health. We hear the term whole foods, and whole foods just simply mean foods from the earth. Understanding how to grow food to sustain our communities is what we need to get back to. So how do we gain access to affordable food? One of the resources that I push and I constantly share with people is community-supported agriculture. Many people know what that is, but don't understand the concept of it. And I like to just say it's just a modern day food subscription box. They're known as farm shares, which is where you receive a box full of fresh veggies and fruits at your doorstep or pickup location. One great resource that I feel is underutilized, which is why I became the outreach coordinator, is Brady Farm. Brady Farm is a 5.8-acre urban farm in Syracuse on Ford Ave. I partnered with Brady Farm and became their outreach coordinator to do the very thing that I'm doing now, to put resources in the hands of people who need it. Boxes run from about $15 to $25. You get between 6 to 10 items, depending on the box you select. You can set up installment payments because we understand that payment is a huge issue, but we also understand that we can now accept SNAP benefits. So we don't want money to be an issue. As well as if you're worried about not knowing how to cook something, there are recipes in a newsletter that you can refer to and try. Delivery is available for those who have trouble finding transportation, and that's within a 10-mile radius of the farm. And if you're outside that 10-mile radius, that is where the pickup location comes in handy, as well as farmers markets. And farmers markets are a food market at which local farmers sell fruits and vegetables, often meat, cheeses, bakery products directly to consumers, where you can save money purchasing. You know, depending where you live in the city, the farmers market may not be close enough for you. So when partnering with Brady Farm, we actually decided to do a farmers market on Cafe Sankofa on Salina Street every first and third Thursday of the month from 2 to 6. I'm always looking for insight from the community to hear what you believe you need within that farmers market. We can reclaim our health by putting the time into recreating our food system that benefits off of our suffering. In partner with Brady, I also have for myself do virtual classes where you receive a box from Brady and together we create healthy recipes that you can try and learn to recreate them. I also developed an online program for individuals looking to start their health journey, but don't necessarily know where to start. I developed this because I wanted people to get the information. The hardest part for me at 350 pounds was to find the help needed to really start creating lasting change in my life. That is why I created the 21-day Plant Reboot, which is a 3-week online program where you can learn to integrate whole foods into your diet. If you've never done it and if you struggle with it, I'm big on correct information. The hardest thing for me during my journey was to understand the information about health and what was true and what was false. I've had the privilege of meeting some great medical professionals in my journey, and these are some of the smartest people I know, and most people would have to search around for years to get the access to knowledge that I have. So as part of the program, we do interviews with these professionals, and people love it because they gain so much knowledge from it. So if you ever want to stay up to date with any of these resources I've stated or information about some of the programming, you can go to that link, chefkeonnayearwood.com, and find more. But I want to end with, again, one of the things I grew up with is not seeing enough representation in the line of work that I do. A lot of the times we suffer from it, but we don't necessarily know what to do. So again, there's a ton of resources out there for individuals that don't necessarily know how to take control of their health. I'm not the only resource out there. I work with a ton of people that we do the same thing. So I just wanted to come on here and say that, you know, there's resources out there for everyone. So thank you guys for listening.
Thank you so much, Kiana. What an incredible presentation of information around resources that we have access to here in Central New York, but also in terms of a framework for thinking about how we can radically reclaim our health, right? By like reclaiming our relationship to land, to labor, to plants, you know? And I know personally, it's been an incredibly healing way of reorienting my life. And I know that that can be really scary for some people, right? Especially if you, for example, maybe grew up in an urban environment or do not have access to those kinds of things or have not. So I'm wondering if you have any advice for folks who either are feeling this personally, or maybe I know we have a lot of healthcare providers here that may be working with people who do not have a familiarity or a comfort with this kind of thing, of how to get them started or how to sort of like engage them without scaring them off.
Yeah, one of the biggest things I realized is that the true honesty is that people grow up differently with different foods on their table. So a lot of the times, a lot of these protocols aren't very cultured to how a person has grown up. And the thing I tell people is it's not necessarily the food that people grow up with, because the honest reality is like not every Black person grows up eating fried foods, because that was my issue. One of the first things the dietitian told me was to stop eating fried foods when I never ate fried foods. So it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't the type of food that I was eating, it's how we were preparing them. So a lot of the times what I see with these food protocols, people get scared about some of the food protocols because one, they think healthy food tastes nasty. And it's a lot of the times it's not palatable to the taste that we grew up on. I grew up with a lot of spice. A lot of the times other people may, you know, not grow up with the certain spice that I grew up on. So a lot of the times these protocols don't kind of cater to the actual person that they're trying to help. So a lot of the times when I go in as a health coach with a lot of, you know, the medical professionals I work with my client in kind of really understanding what kind of food culture they grew up on. What are the kind of meals that you like? What about those meals you like? Because we can remake these meals and they'll taste great with the same ingredients, just preparing them differently and adding different things in and teaching them different techniques. But what I find that I gain a lot of success with is really taking that extra time and saying, what did you grow up on? What are the flavors that you like? Okay, how can we switch some of these things out to make it a lot more healthier for you?
That's beautiful. I mean, I'm drawing connections between what Katora is offering too, right? Because in many ways, you're speaking about a ministry, right? In some ways, not to like borrow that language if it might be inappropriate.
No,
Yeah, but it's like meeting people where they are, you know, listening to where they are, and then providing information that is able to fit within like a science-based practice, right?
Right.
Within people's lived experiences. You know, food is a belief system, right? For so many people. So it's interesting to kind of like think about those connections, you know, and hopefully maybe that will generate some questions for some people in the over here. So I'd actually really love to encourage folks to post some questions in the chat, both for Kiana and also for Keturah, or for both of them while we prep to switch over to Heather. But Heather actually sent through two quick questions that I'd love to ask you while we're still hanging out. So she asked if CSAs still offer work trade for food, or I guess you could also say like other kinds of accommodations. And then the other one is, do you work with people from other counties? And I would say also like, how do people work with you? You know, because you said with healthcare professionals, but it sounds like you also have some individual clients. So how does that kind of work?
So as for work share for food, so we have something here at the Brady Farm called the Solidarity Share. So we understand that we have a wide range of people who sign up for CSA. We have people who are looking to just, to see if they can get food. We have people that are wealthier. So what we talk about a solidarity share is where we charge them knowingly. We charge the people that can afford it a little more on their CSA, so that we can supplement for people that come to us and say, like, I need food. So we have that extra change to simply just give people food who need it. So that's why we charge a little more for, when individuals know this, they partner with us in doing so. So that's what we'd call a solidarity share.
If someone was I'm just going to add to that. If someone was interested in, let's say, like volunteering to like learn more about working with the soil, is that something that folks could do too?
Yeah, so one of my jobs here is what I'm doing currently right now at the Brady Farm, is creating programming for, our community to connect with the land again. It's easy to say, reclaim your health by, connecting with the land, but a lot of people don't necessarily have those traits. So I am currently in the process. We're going to be, I think, launching in 2 weeks, programming for just that. People coming to the farm, learning how to turn over the soil, learning how to transplant, all these different things. So that's a great program that I'm excited to roll out for the community as well.
Amazing. I'm going to get that information for you to share out.
Yeah.
And then the other question, which was just about like if you work with folks from other counties, how people work with you, how you work.
Yeah. So one of the great things about this pandemic was it widened my range of influence, where I can go on something like this and I can actually do classes with the individual. I can actually speak to them directly. Virtual has opened a wide range of people. I work with people from California. I have one in New Hampshire. So I work with a wide range of people all over the country.
Amazing. All right. Any final thoughts during this little moment? We can come back to you too at the end.
No, thank you.
Great. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Kiana. All right. I am going to add Heather Shannon. All this like live video mixing is exciting. If anyone, by the way, wants like a tutorial in Zoom, reach out to me. I'm happy to educate anyone who wants. All right, it is now my pleasure to introduce our third and final guest of the evening, and also our final speaker for the entire series. This is Heather M. Shannon, who serves as a staff nurse practitioner for Oswego County Opportunities, also called OCO. She is a nationally certified and New York State licensed midwife, women's health nurse practitioner, and OBGYN nurse practitioner with 24 years experience here in Central New York. She received her Master of Science midwifery at the University of Rochester in 1997 and a Master of Public Health at Upstate Medical University and Syracuse University in 2012. Ms. Shannon began her career as a staff midwife in a private physician practice where she provided full scope women's health care. She then became the perinatal quality educational specialist for the regional perinatal program at Upstate Medical University. After receiving her MPH, Ms. Shannon developed and implemented the region's first independent provider-based academic midwifery practice at Upstate Medical University, where she was the founder and director for nearly 5 years. This practice was designed to help women gain access to quality women's healthcare within a large healthcare system. Her primary responsibilities were to provide OBGYN care, oversee the startup and practice growth, and ensure the quality of the services provided. She also served as the director of business development and hospital liaison at Upstate Cord Blood Bank, where she was responsible for the business development and implementation of cord blood collection sites in upstate New York. She supported the mission of outreach and education for women's healthcare professionals and our community through a variety of educational opportunities. In her current role at OCO, Ms. Shannon practices as a women's health nurse practitioner, providing reproductive health care that includes family planning, well woman visits for all ages, evaluation and management of common gynecological problems, and gynecological cancer screenings. She also serves as the infection control Call Officer for OCO's COVID-19 Pandemic Incident Command and Recovery Teams. And most recently, she provides medical evaluations for children who are victims of sexual abuse. In addition to that, I know she's also very active in our community as a writer and as someone who serves actually on the YMCA board recently. And we are really grateful to have her with us to share some of her expertise. So without further ado, I turn over our virtual stage to you.
Oh, thank you. Holy cow, I'm really tired just listening to you talk about me. I gotta, yikes. I'm nearing retirement in the next several years. And I retired from obstetrics because it was just so exhausting being on call and taking care of people. And I figured making this transition over to a nurse practitioner seemed to fit better in terms of providing the best quality care for women who need GYN health. And I had transitioned out of urban health in Syracuse because I had been in Syracuse for 21 years. And then I transitioned to rural health in Oswego, which has been a whole different experience. And it's been a wonderful experience because there's different needs up there. So I've been so blessed to be able to have all these special experiences with women and get familiar with the communities that are out there, not just urban, suburban, and rural. It's amazing. So I'm very blessed to have been invited to participate in this education series for women and also hopefully provide you some information on a common health problem that women experience, but may not know enough about it. There's a lot of stigma hidden with hormones and your menstrual cycle, and I thought it would be important to bring to light to the Y Women's Wellness Center and just see if there's any way that we can help some of our women get through some of the hormonal challenges that they may experience. So I do have a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation I'd like to share. All right, can we all see this? Very good. Okay, so how many times have we heard this, that people have said to you, what's the matter with you? You must be getting your period. And, you know, maybe, and this happens to women who are of childbearing age. So women who are getting their period on a regular basis who have not gone through menopause or surgical menopause, which means a hysterectomy, and having their ovaries removed. But how many times have you heard that and you have actually gotten offended by it? I know that if someone in my family says something to me, you know, I will respond back, not in a very nice way, saying, no, I'm not getting my period. But maybe after I think about it, maybe there is something hormonally going on that I need to think about and understand about myself, because obviously I am moody. And that's the perception that people get, is that you are moodier or you're acting different than your normal self. So I thought we would talk a little bit about some actual medical conditions called premenstrual syndrome, which is PMS. I'm sure many of us have heard of before. And the other one is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is PMDD. And PMDD is an actual true medical diagnosis that does require medical treatment. PMS we can kind of take care of with some over-the-counter, and I'll talk about this towards the end of the talk, but there's things that you can do yourself to help control PMS. So with PMDD, like I said, it can be a little bit more of a complicated medical condition that will require either some hormones or some other kind of medications or an understanding of what's going on in your menstrual cycle. And we're going to talk about that. In terms of PMDD, you may find that you have more significant moods and physical symptoms, which can be very distressing and very uncomfortable. And that's what people are recognizing, is that there's a difference in you, and they're trying to tell you in a way that there's something different about you. Maybe we need to look into that a little bit more. PMDD also has a serious impact on our lives. It does have an impact in our health. It does have impact in our relationships as well as our work. So it really does interfere with what we do on a daily basis. And it's not controlled without medical help. So keep that in mind, that if you think that you may have some PMDD, that it is okay to ask for help. Your healthcare provider is the best resource for you. In terms of the overview, what we have here is I have a little comparison chart here for PMS and PMDD. And, 40% of women will experience some sort of PMS, premenstrual syndrome. It occurs a couple days to weeks prior to your menses or your period. Many symptoms are mild to moderate and do not need any kind of prescription treatment, and over-the-counter remedies or medications are enough to help. The hormonal birth control methods can help with the symptoms. So if you do find that over-the-counter medications are not helping you, or remedies, then you can consider some hormonal options. But when you're talking about PMDD, it affects about 2 to 8% of women who are still having their menstrual cycles. So if you think about the billions of women who are in reproductive age across this world, 8%, up to 8%, that's a pretty high number of women who do suffer from this actual medical condition. What's interesting about this PMDD is that we know when it actually is going to occur and actually how long it's going to last. And it occurs after you ovulate, and it resolves or gets better when you start your period. And it usually lasts about 14 days, which is half the month if you have a typical 28-day cycle. Symptoms range anywhere from mild to severe, and they don't always improve with over-the-counter medications, and you usually do need some type of medical prescription of medication. Hormonal birth control methods also are good treatments, but some women need to take additional prescriptions, such as a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, and I'm going to talk about that here in a couple minutes. I know it's a little bit of a busier chart with lots of bright colors, but basically this is kind of a comparison in terms of symptom differences between PMS as well as PMDD. So I think those of us who have experienced some type of PMS, we can understand the bloating, the breast tenderness, maybe getting the headaches or the migraines, bowel changes, which could be anything from constipation to diarrhea or irritable bowel or just gas pain, fatigue, and also decreased libido, which is your sex drive. You can also become more irritable and have problems concentrating and mood changes. Some experience depression and crying spells, forgetfulness, and also can be withdrawn. Now, with the PMDD symptoms, you can get all of these plus. So you can get, with the physical symptoms, you can have anorexia, where you feel you don't want to eat, or the opposite, where you're overeating. You can also have difficulty with sleeping, such as insomnia. You may find that there's certain times during the month that you find you're more awake at night and having difficulty falling to sleep or falling back to sleep. You have this overall feeling of lack of energy or extremely tired, even though you may consider yourself an active person or even a very involved person. You may find that during certain times of your menstrual cycle, you are feeling not like you want to do anything. Now, with regards to pelvic pain, I do have endometriosis here. Endometriosis and PMDD are not connected. Endometriosis is its own separate type of GYN problem, but when you have pelvic pain that can be worsened with endometriosis, and those women who do suffer from endometriosis, it can be very debilitating, especially close to your menses and close to your period. So with PMDD, your pain level is exaggerated, and you have a significant amount of pelvic pain, and that can be very debilitating for women. And it's just there's help out there for you, but it can be very debilitating. In terms of the emotional symptoms, in addition to what you can get with PMS, there is true tension and anxiety, and you may not have depression with this. So you may find that you're experiencing maybe more panic attacks, that you find certain situations that you normally feel you can handle or be able to work through, you're not able to. Maybe you're worrying a little bit more or a lot more. I mean, look at what we're dealing with in terms of COVID. The amount of women who are under a lot of pressure and stress to protect their families and keep them safe from COVID and from being exposed, and also trying to keep up with all the guidelines and recommendations. And it's been very difficult for women because they are considered the primary care providers of most families, and they make majority of the medical decisions. This can be a lot of pressure on women. And of course, it can be exaggerated when you are cycling, when you're still having your menses, that your anxieties can be heightened. In terms of dysphoria, that's a overwhelming feeling of being unwell or unhappy. You may find that you have low interest, or you may even be feeling out of control. And relationships are affected. And this is where your loved ones are noticing that something's different about you. So it's hard when somebody says, oh my gosh, what's the matter with you? Are you getting your period again? You know what? Maybe we do need to think about what's going on with me. You know, is there something that maybe I'm experiencing something a little bit more than just being overtired or overstressed, that maybe there is something that's going on. And what you might want to do is start to keep track of what your symptoms are. And I'm going to kind of walk you through how PMDD can occur in the menstrual cycle and when to look for your symptoms. So your menstrual cycle, which is getting your period, on average, it's about 28 days, but its normal period length could be anywhere from 3 weeks to 5 weeks, up to 6 weeks. So 21 to 35 days is considered normal, and you'll find that a lot of medical organizations will use the average of 28 days. So when I'm talking about this, it doesn't mean that your period is 28 days and you would have to figure out your actual length of your menstrual cycle, and I'll tell you how you can do that. So how do you start counting your menstrual cycle? Well, first day of bleeding is considered day 1. That's really easy. So what happens? That, in the medical term, we consider follicular phase. That means that your body, now that you are bleeding, you're having your period, your body is getting ready to try to get pregnant again and have a baby. So what happens is on day 5, estrogen is produced in your ovary, and it actually tells your ovary and your brain, they talk to each other, and it tells your ovary it's time to make an egg. We need to make a follicle so we can have a baby. And it's also, the estrogen is also responsible for bulking up the lining of your uterus, which we call the endometrium. So what happens is from day 1 to day 14, your body is doing all this work behind the scenes to get ready to make an egg to release, which is called ovulation. So you can try to get pregnant or not get pregnant. So on day 14, in a 28-day cycle, you have something called ovulation. That's where you actually release the egg to get pregnant. It's really hard to get pregnant. I know that there's a lot of unintended pregnancies out there, but it is very hard. There's about a 24-hour window to actually conceive. And it's just amazing that in 24 hours, there's a lot of things that are happening. And if you don't end up conceiving or fertilization does not occur, then what our body does is say, okay, it's time that we need to stop working, trying to have a baby, and let's start thinking about the next cycle, and let's get rid of the lining that we started to bulk up, and start thinking about how to ovulate again next month. So what's happening is after you ovulate on day 14, for the next 14 days, you have something called the luteal phase. And this is where that lining, either you're pregnant and your uterus continues to bulk up its lining to get ready for the baby, or the lining breaks down, and that's where you end up getting your period, which is at the end of 2 weeks. So something to keep in mind, the day that you ovulate is always and forever going to be 14 days before you get your period. and that's called luteal phase. So some of those women, and this could be another talk another day, but those women who do want to try to get pregnant or not try to get pregnant without having to use any hormonal methods, there's ways that we can teach you how to monitor when you're ovulating. As long as you know when you start your day one of your period, you can count back 14 days and figure out when you ovulate. So something for a future talk. All right, in terms of women who suffer PMS or PMDD, it is in that luteal phase, which is from the time of ovulation to the time that you get your period. So it's the 2 weeks. Usually, believe it or not, women are symptom-free between days 4 and 12. That's not a lot of time. Thinking about a period that's 28 days or even 35 days, you have approximately 8 days of feeling okay. Yikes, that's not a lot. That's pretty distressing. Women who do suffer from PMDD, this does occur every month and the symptoms can vary. You may not have the same symptoms every month. So what can you do? Well, I mentioned before that you can monitor your symptoms, and it would be a good idea to try to pay attention to your symptoms over the next 3 months. So you can have a report as to what's going on to you. What are your symptoms? When are they occurring? How often are they occurring? What's working to make them better and what's making them worse? Because I'm going to encourage you to contact your healthcare provider, and these are questions that they're going to want to know the answers to help you consider what needs to be done. Your healthcare provider will be able to order some testing on you. Thyroid is always one test that GYN healthcare providers want to do, because thyroid can really affect moods, and it can affect your menses, and it can affect just your entire body. Other hormonal testing as well, just to make sure that your brain and your ovaries are talking to each other correctly, because sometimes when your hormones aren't quite right, that your brain and ovaries, they don't seem to get their signals right. And that's where there's some dysfunction, and that's where symptoms can be even worse. So this is where Kiana comes into play, because changing your lifestyle is really important. That's one of the first things you're going to want to try to do, is to improve your overall health and stop unhealthy habits. Because what this does is it does balance those hormones and helps your ovary and your brain talk to each other much better. So of course, and we hear a lot of, this isn't anything new. This isn't any kind of magic that I have here. It is something that has been talked to, and it's been out there, right? Yeah, Kiana, it's been out there for a long time that, you know, we need to reduce alcohol intake. We need to stop smoking tobacco cigarettes. Tobacco cigarettes really affects your immune system and your overall general health. You want to make sure that you look at the certain medications or drugs that you are taking. And of course, if you're on any kind of illicit drugs or any prescription medications that are habit forming, like opioids, you definitely want to see about getting off of those and getting on, getting in maybe a little bit of a different path. You want to decrease complex carbohydrates, which is a lot of the store-bought baked goods, snacks, processed foods, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that Kiana can have a whole list of better foods to replace these store-bought baked goods and items that are out there. You want to increase your lean proteins, you know, your chicken, your poultry, your fish, nuts, legumes. You want to make sure, you know, pork is the other white meat as well. So you want to make sure you're getting adequate amounts of protein and regular carbohydrates. You want to make sure you're getting fresh fruits and vegetables as well. The fiber in these, as well as vitamins in your fresh fruits and vegetables, are extremely important for your entire body's functioning. And I think with being involved in CSAs is extremely important. This is how you can get some of these fresh fruits and vegetables rather than going to a grocery store and getting the organic, labeled organic, and paying nearly twice as much for these fresh produce. So I will leave that up to our expert chef here on our panel to be able to tease that out for anybody who has special questions about organic foods sold in the stores, that is. Also exercise 30 minutes a day, which is 120 minutes per week, or you're talking about 4 days of half-hour walks, or going to the Y and using their fitness center, or taking some of their classes. They have the virtual classes now. So for those of us who are not quite ready to get to the gym, we can do our virtual classes, which is wonderful. You can still get involved and you can still do your exercise. Now, when people exercise, you know, or at least like Keonna says, they have a misperception as to what exercise means. I think they think you need to be on that treadmill, you need to run an hour full bore, and you need to work up that huge sweat. No, you don't have to. You don't have to do that hour run. What you need to do is figure out the program that allows enough cardiovascular workout plus some of the weight training to build up muscle mass. And the Y has a ton of programs that can provide that mix for you. So I would highly recommend that, you know, the Y has a ton of resources available to help with stress management, as well as exercising, as well as nutrition. So I would take up the programs that they have available. And I think that if you reach out to Jessica, she can provide you in the right direction to get some help or get some information on better lifestyle and improving your health. Now, in terms of stress management, I know a lot of people, you know, can't afford to take special stress management courses and, you know, self-help kind of things where it costs money. Simple yoga is a huge stress reducer. So they have yoga classes. You can do the virtual yoga classes if you're not comfortable, like I said, getting into the classroom. That is huge in terms of reducing your stress. I could go on and on, but my talk is more on PMS, PMDD, so I'll move on. All right, so if you can't, you know, if you're having difficulty and you're not finding the desired effects from doing some of the lifestyle modifications, then you need to look at the medications. And this is where your healthcare provider can work with you on that. Of course, there's the hormonal options. You got your birth control pills, patches, and rings. You also have the implant and the IUD, which is an intrauterine device. And those implants and IUDs release progesterone into your body. And what the pills, the implants, the IUDs do is they interfere with the luteal phase. Again, that luteal phase is from ovulation, 14 days until the first day of your period. So we want to control the level of hormones during that luteal phase. If you find that you are not a candidate for birth control pills that have estrogen in it, or the patch or the ring, that's okay. They have progesterone only pills. They also have the implant and the IUD. And some people are a little more worried about putting something in their body. Totally understandable. Just know that there's options for you out there. And they're safe. All of these options are safe for you. If the hormonal options don't seem to work well for you, or you just don't want to take a hormone, there is the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, big word for SSRI. Those are your Seraphims, your Paxils, Prozac, Zoloft, Lexapros. There's a whole list of medications that fall under this category. And what they do is they affect your serotonin levels. Now, Seraphim, if you look at that word, that is the only FDA-approved medication out there to treat PMDD. It is Paxil. However, it is a Paxil that is in a lower dose, and it is also given to you for a 10 to 14 day period. And what I mean by that is you start your symptoms, which is usually right after you ovulate within 24 hours. You start taking your Seraphim at the first sign of your symptoms, and you take it for 10 to 14 days. Once you have started your period, you stop taking the Seraphim, and then you wait until you get your symptoms again the next time. So for those of you who are not interested in taking medication on a daily basis, this is something that is kind of an interrupted medication where you take it only when you have the symptoms and when you need it. And so you don't have the side effects, you don't have the withdrawal symptoms that you can get with some of these other medications. In terms of the selective serotonin, norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, I know a long word, that's your Cymbalta, your Effexor, your Pristiq, and all those other name brand medications, they affect your serotonin and your norepinephrine levels. These chemicals are in your brain, and they really can, if they're off kilter, they can really affect your moods. And taking these medications will help improve your PMDD symptoms, especially if you're finding, you're overwhelmed, or you're not able to get up because you're just so exhausted, or you're just so unwell, you just can't get yourself to get up and move. These medications can help you with that. There's another level of another option for pain, or for medication. It's pain relievers. You got to think, if you're having some pelvic pain, whether it is from the endometriosis or it's just from this period. People can get a lot of pelvic pain just from ovulating. It's called middle Schmerz pain, and that can occur for 24 hours, that can occur for a couple days, that can occur for 1 hour, or it can occur right up until you get your period. So know that you can take pain relievers such as the NSAIDs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like the naproxen, the ibuprofen, the aspirins that are out there. You do need to be careful though. These medications can be irritating to your stomach. So you want to make sure you do eat it with food, right? Yeah, eat it with food or drink. And also, if you do have a condition that doesn't allow you to take NSAIDs, please make sure you share that with your healthcare provider, because there's other options that you can consider. All right. If you are interested in medications, you can also try to go the vitamins and supplement route. Vitamin B6, C, and E, as well as pretty much the B complexes, can improve moods. Studies have shown that they can improve your moods. Very important to consider. I see Kiana not bobbing her head up and down. Yeah, vitamins. Get them through your food sources if you can. Obviously, a multivitamin is really important. You can consider calcium and magnesium and folic acid. Again, they can improve moods as well as pain. I put a couple of supplements in here, such as flaxseed and evening primrose oil. There's a lot of options out there. You want to be careful. You want to make sure you talk to somebody who is knowledgeable in these areas. Your healthcare provider can provide you some information on these, but flaxseed has been shown to have some anecdotal positive responses in terms of moods and also weight control. But it's something that you should learn a little bit more about to see if that's important or good for you. For me, I used to have a functional medicine program when I was at Upstate, and I dealt with menopausal and perimenopausal women. So I did a lot with vitamins and supplements, and it would be a great idea for every woman to take an omega-3, to make sure that they take a probiotic, make sure they're on a multivitamin. And believe it or not, a B complex is good if you don't seem to be getting enough through food sources, but also vitamin D3. Unfortunately, the Northeast, you'd be surprised how many women are insufficient or deficient in vitamin D, and that has a lot of impact on our health. Vitamin D is very important for us. And even though we try to think that we have enough sun in the summertime, we still don't get enough vitamin D. We have trouble absorbing it. So I would say vitamin D is also a very big vitamin that we need to consider to have in our diet or as a supplement. So in terms of wrapping up, PMS, PMDD is real. PMDD is a true medical diagnosis. You need to make sure that you recognize your symptoms and try to figure out, just know about it, learn about it, understand it. It will be easier for you to be able to feel better and get better. Make sure you talk to your healthcare provider for help. They are the ones who can guide you and give you the support that you need. Also, you want to implement lifestyle changes, and you've got the why here to be able to help you with a lot of these. So I would say, if you're not comfortable talking to your healthcare provider, you can at least start with some of the lifestyle changes to see if maybe you see some improvement there. Obviously, reduce your stress, consider medications, which again, your healthcare provider will help you with, vitamins and supplements, and always remember to take care of yourself. So I thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks so much, Heather. So I'm going to invite both Katora and Kiana back into this conversation because of their work within the communities and connecting folks to resources. Do you have recommendations or do you have anecdotes that you can offer in terms of how folks can find access to care if they have faced some sort of discrimination?
You know, reaching out to your community, finding out who the individuals are, the trusted messengers are in your community and in your family. Sometimes we're not even having a conversation with our families around what we're experiencing. We're staying in silos because possibly shame, fear of judgment. And so sometimes it's just a matter of opening our mouths and having a conversation with somebody we trust.
Agreed.
Thank you. And I also just want to say thank you so much, Heather. I know we just sort of like jumped right to the Q&A, but I wanted to thank you for your presentation. It was so informative and generous and did such an incredible work to, you know, even in these moments together to destigmatize menstruation, as well as some of the, you know, the distressing side effects that can happen for 2 to 8% of people that are menstruating. And I just am so grateful for the informative and robust presentation that you offered, and that also all three of you offered this evening. I'm very grateful for it. And I'm seeing some comments coming in from Brandis, who actually is responsible for helping connect so many of our speakers tonight. So I want to give a special shout out to Brandis for making that connection. And she says that awesome information, and really to Heather, but also I saw her pop in about Kiana and some other folks, and loved the entire presentation so far. Brittany Williams also said all of the presenters were so informative. Thank you for sharing your expertises. If anybody has any questions, we're coming with lots of compliments, which I love, but if anyone has any questions, bring them through. You know, but while we do that, while people maybe like gain some courage to enter some questions, I would love to actually ask a question to all three of you. So something that I noticed about that all three of you have in common is that you are really leading the work of overcoming and changing stigma with respect to your specific expertises, whether it be disclosing and talking about seeking treatment of medical issues within faith communities or health disparities that we may not have language around, stigma around food and diet or the land and changing our relationship to those things, or stigma around menstruation or hormonal or sex specific experiences. And I know that like as an activist, you know, I'm going to give you all that label, that being at the vanguard of change can be really stressful. So how is it that each of the three of you fill your own well whilst doing this work?
That's another loaded question, Jessica.
Yes, definitely. I'm like,
You know, I would have to say for, you know, doing my works in Onondaga County for all those years, I found that just being honest with myself, to be able to be honest with my patients was key, and also learning about the areas. There were, you know, there's different sections within the Syracuse area of ethnicities, and it was, especially when I was going through my MPH program, just learning about the areas was key. I've had the opportunity to work with the Native Americans, with the refugee centers, as well as with the Asian communities, as well as the South Side communities. It just gave me such an appreciation for the variety and the majority of the people that we have in our communities that can offer so much. So for me to learn about what we have in our communities was extremely important, because that helped me be able to take care of you, to help meet your needs and understand the Hispanics when we're doing a birth, that hot and cold is really important and what you should do. So I think just being open and understanding what's around us, we can learn from each other. I know that you all have helped me become a little bit more of a broader healthcare provider and hopefully a better listener. I think that was a roundabout way of answering your question. So
Thank you, Heather.
yeah, for me, what What's helpful for me is when I am looking to engage and initiate and advocate for, going up against the stigma and barriers and working to bring change to certain situations or certain communities or groups, is that be intentional around creating sustainability so that when I leave, I'm confident knowing that things are still progressing without me. And that gives me such a sense of peace that I can move on to something else, knowing that the work is still happening.
Yeah. For me, growing up a kid, I grew up in Connecticut. A really small, poor city. So going through those experiences and coming to a place like Syracuse where there's a lot of familiar, like it's similar, very similar. The problems don't go away unless someone's there to, advocate for it. And a lot of the times people don't know what to advocate for. So a lot of the things, it always brings me back to that. I spoke of that dietitian's office. That was 3 weeks after I just lost my grandmother that was 52 years old to heart disease. So every time I think about that and her saying, you'll be just like your grandmother, I always pay homage to my grandmother, because had that experience not happened to me, I don't think I would have taken my health seriously. Mm-hmm. So I find that connection to a lot of people who have the similar experiences to me. And to be honest with you, I tell people all the time, people keep me going. To see people to see people start the transformation, to actually see people start learning. Like I did a session a couple of weeks ago where there were kids, and these kids have never tried some of these things in these boxes, and it was different for them, a different experience. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me healthy, because if I'm not healthy, I can't show others how to do so.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have sort of a follow-up question to that as well. And also, audience, please put in some questions into the chat. I think they were also blown away by all of your information. Perhaps we're stunned, by the wealth of resources that we have, and between the three of you. And you speaking to that, I also wanted to say that all three of you share something that all of our speakers in this series also share, which is that you are these incredibly grounded, committed, brilliant, like informative women who really seem to be living in your calling. Like you really seem to be living in it and sharing it and educating through it, right? And it's so evident, and it's like such a beautiful thing to see this arc of this, I'll call it a sisterhood, right? Even of this like small little presentation group that we're doing over the course of the month. And I wanted to ask if it's just kind of like always been clear to you, like, was there like a moment where things changed, where like you ended up and then you were like, oh yeah, this is it? Or are you still kind of finding your way? Or, like what was the process like for you to arrive in the path that really seems to be yours? And I'm just curious to hear those answers, because folks have given all different kinds of things, and I know that people really love hearing that. So if you all would be willing to share that.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know for me, I definitely didn't think I was going to be doing this. I definitely didn't know this was my calling. I knew cooking was a thing for me. I've been cooking since 6 years old because my father is a chef, but it wasn't this type of cooking. It wasn't this line of work. I initially was an athlete, and that was the way I wanted to go, but I tore my ACL, and that completely shifted my trajectory. But cooking was always on my mind, but nutrition was never something. It only took me going through my journey of losing weight to actually realize, like, there's other people that need me. And it's only been in the last, I'd say, 2 years that I really feel like I'm actually within my calling, just because I always say, when you get to the place where money doesn't matter, you're in your calling. And for me, simply just seeing the transformation of others is enough for me.
Beautiful. Hopefully it pays too. You know,
Yeah, it does, but you know.
it's when those things align, right? You know,
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
know it's like really flowing.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much, Kiana. Katora, would you like to respond?
So, like clockwork, I need something to happen. I lost Wi-Fi, so I missed that question. I told you it was not going to end without something happening for me. So, what was the question?
Oh, yes. Okay. So the question, in short, was that all three of you are these incredibly like grounded, brilliant, informative, skilled women who seem to really be living in your calling, you know? And I was curious if you would be willing to speak to what the path to finding that road was, and if like you always knew that you were going to be, you know, in the current path that you were in, or if there were twists and turns, or like what that journey kind of looked like. This is something that all of our guests more or less have shared over the course, as you know, because you've been a guest as well. So, you know, so just curious if you would speak to that about like what your personal journey looked like to arriving in this moment of living in your calling.
So, I actually wanted to be a midwife ever since I was little. And so I kind of started, so my mom suggested, why don't you start, you know, some nursing or something? And so I actually was a candy striper, then became a CNA and started working my way up. And then it got to a point where I stopped and did general kind of education with human services. And actually what happened was OCC was doing independent study, and I had to meet certain requirements, and they had already started a cohort. So I thought I'll just take general classes. And so then by the time started rolling, I was kind of disinterested with that. And then kind of moved on, and then had this opportunity to become a doula. And I thought, well, maybe this will get me back into it. Well, after about a couple of 42, 36-hour bursts, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to stick with being a doula because they always happen on Saturday night. Like, so yeah, that was like, okay. And then from the work with the doula program, really realizing that I love maternal mental health. I love maternal health more than anything. I love advocacy work and policy change. And that's where like my heart really is. And that's where I've been putting a lot of my interest in. It's advocating for the holistic person, the individual, and the community that they're in. And so that's where I'm with doula work and faith community nursing. You know, it's all about the holistic person.
Thank you so much. Heather, would you like to answer that question?
Sure. Okay. So my story goes back to when I was growing up. I grew up in the little town of Vestal. I grew up in a really rural, small country area, and this was in the 70s. And you know, I lived in the country, so I didn't have friends, I didn't have neighbors, I had an older brother. So I had to figure out how to self-soothe myself, entertain myself. And because we lived in the country, my father was a hunter. And so he would always hunt during hunting season. And anytime he would bring a deer home, I was right there with him as he was doing what he needs to do to process the deer. And he always kept the heart for me. And I, 6, 7, 8 years old, I was never afraid of having that heart, playing with it. And I know I say playing with it, I'd put my fingers in the valves and he would cut it open. I'd look at it. I'd play with the tongue of the deer and the eyes. So I was just fascinated with health, I would say. So and plus I was a lonely child, and that was interesting for me. I learned from it. So as school went on, I graduated from high school. I got into St. Joe's School of Nursing at the time. So I came up here to Syracuse, to the big city, a country girl coming to the city. And I had a great education that I figured that I'm going to go on to school. So I went ahead and got my bachelor's degree in Rochester. Well, after I got done with getting my bachelor's degree, I really had an interest in maternal child health. So I was able to come back and work at St. Joe's as a labor and delivery nurse from 1992 to 1997. And I had the opportunity to just gain so much knowledge on how to take care of women in childbirth. And everybody, childbirth, those of us who've had babies, you know, it's not easy, it's difficult. You have to attend the family, you have to attend the mother, you have to attend the baby, you have to attend the doctors. So it just fascinated me. And that's when I decided, you know what, I think I want to go a step further, but which path do I want to go? Do I want to become a midwife, or do I want to become a nurse anesthetist? Well, I got an opportunity to interview a nurse anesthetist, and she wasn't quite as informative as I would hope. And it kind of just made me walk away from the profession thinking, I'm not sure that would be for me. And then I had an opportunity to sit down with, and I don't know if any of you remember, Kathy King, who was a midwife back in the late 80s and early 90s, where the birth center at St. Joe's was in the separate building. I think right now the emergency room is kind of off of it. The new emergency room, it's kind of along the same lines. That used to be the old birthplace. So Kathy King said she would meet with me. We sat on the lawn outside of the birthplace with the sun beating on us. And it was kind of like, whoa, I gotta be a midwife. And it was from then on, it was maternal child health all the way. So I consider myself a women's health expert because that's all I know is OB/GYN. So becoming a midwife, you know, Katora, you're right. I got burned out several times from taking call, because you do have to be on call. You have to be available to be thoughtful and be on top of the childbirth. Then you've got to do your rounds, and then you've got to go to the office and see patients, and then, oh, you got to take care of your family because now you have a family, right? And it was very hard to juggle. So I did that for 10 years with that private practice in Syracuse. And then ended up going to upstate doing something totally different, where I learned a different side of maternal child health. And I was responsible for reviewing all the maternal, fetal, infant, and neonatal deaths within the region, which I know a lot of people are like, what do you mean you got to review those? That's horrible. The way I see it is, it's not, yes, there was a life that was lost, but my job is to figure out how to prevent that from happening again. So that's where I was that perinatal quality educational specialist. So here I'm thinking that this is where my purpose is. This is what I need to do. I've got my 10 years experience in maternal child health. Now it's, you know, it's how do I educate and help our labor and delivery units in our region. There was like 18 hospitals that we were responsible for through the perinatal program. So at the same time, I was working with Dr. Aubrey. I don't know if many of you remember Dr. Aubrey from the Perinatal Center. He said to me, he goes, you know, he has an MPH. He's like, why don't you go get an MPH? We have a program here at Upstate. You'd be good at it. So I did. And that's when I learned about our community. So here I'm going down another path where I'm stepping away from chart review and quality. Now I'm looking at our community. What is it that we're missing within our own backyard? So I got an understanding that women's health care, we were lacking access. How long did it take for women to get into prenatal care? I have this all written down that I won't share all the details, but it can take up to 3 months, 4 months for a pregnant woman to get their first prenatal visit. Well, guess what? You just lost a lot of precious time in terms of making sure that the mother and the baby are okay. So what I did is realized that there's such a void in women getting access to healthcare. I created a business plan and for Upstate and presented it to the president at the time. And he said, yeah, let's do it. And then the chairman of OB/GYN agreed that that would be something that they would do. And that's the birth of Upstate Midwifery, which was located at the community campus. Because Upstate does not have a labor and delivery unit. There's a weird relationship between Krause and Upstate, where all the OB residents do all their residency at Krause, because Krause has the labor and delivery unit, and they also have the perinatal center And they also have the neonatal, the tertiary neonatal care center there. So this was the first time that Upstate has its own labor and delivery unit, which was up at the community campus. And this was at the time when Community General was being acquired by Upstate. So here I am getting back into midwifery practice, going back on call and doing obstetrics, which I did. I truly thought I was retired from doing OB care because it did burn me out. But I was just so in love with what this practice was offering. We were getting patients in within 2 weeks of their phone calls, so they can get into care, whether it was for prenatal care, for GYN care. We saw everybody, and we created a relationship with the Native Americans down in Nedrow and at the Oneidas as well, because my partner, medical director, was Dr. Brian Thompson, who is a Native American. And he's like, listen, we've got to help that area, that community, because there's a lot of concern with the relationships between the cultures and our communities. So we need to build up that trusting relationship. So we had a really, really nice program for the Native Americans. And we also did a lot of other things like centering pregnancy. We were starting up. We were also providing the postmenopausal, perimenopausal functional medicine program. That's not just, here is a pill, here's your hormone pills, good luck, hope you feel better. No, this was a whole program that involved some bioidentical hormones, some compounding stuff, some diet changes and lifestyle changes. It really works. You just need to buckle down and be able to do it. So that was wonderful. That was the height of my program. I thought that was, or my career, and I thought that was my swan song. But then again, I got burned out. I was on call. Did a lot of births. It was just hard to be able to juggle everything. I was afraid of causing some harm or doing something that would be damaging. So I ended up going into business development because I had experience in doing that. And that's where I ended up at the Cord Blood Bank. Well, guess what? I wasn't seeing patients. I missed taking care of patients. And I figured, you know what, I'm always learning. I'm 50 years old and I'm still learning. So I am now working in a rural setting in Oswego County. And oh my gosh, I thought I saw everything. And no, you'd be surprised the type of people that are coming in that are homeless, that are drug addicted, that are abused. So thinking that I was just going to be a nurse practitioner, now I'm a infection control officer, and I'm also doing the CAC, the Child Advocacy Center, medical evaluations for sexually abused children, which it's a huge need in Oswego County. So I'm very blessed, very grateful to be able to do this. So did I think when I was back as a child playing around with the hearts of deer that I would be doing this today? No, not at all. Not at all.
Well, thank you so much.
So blessed. So thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing that really interesting, and really diverse career path, right? I mean, and I think it's helpful for many of us to hear actually that oftentimes when we're presented with really impressive women, right? It's like, wow, what clarity you have, to have arrived in this place. And I think that it's really humbling for so many of us to learn, right, that there is always an interesting pathway through which we come to what it is we are meant to do. And sometimes it's because it's something that we always knew. Sometimes it's because of a very specific life event that happened that brought us to where we are. And other times it's because there's doors that open or things that feel right, or the ways in which we follow, the things that we like and the things that need to happen, right? And the things that we are drawn to that then feed us, back to be able to continue offering that service. So I just in kind of closing, really want to thank you all three of you, for your generosity, for your expertise, for all of the information that you have provided with us. And I also want to thank everybody who logged on in the past, in the present, and the future, since this is going to live online, to just thank you for sharing time and attention with us. And in closing, I'd actually just love to ask our speakers if you have any final closing closing thoughts that you want to offer, before we say goodnight to anybody. So if you just want to take like, less than a minute or so per person, that would be great. Maybe Heather, would you like to start? And then we could go to Kiana and Katora.
Yeah, no problem. I so thankful that I can be a part of this program and this lecture series. To me, knowledge is power. It doesn't matter what color you are. It doesn't matter where you live or what you live in. If you have the knowledge, you can be able to get answers. You can be able to get that better path. Just giving the information and knowing that there's options for you, and it's just knowing where to turn. And I think that's the struggle that I hope I can help everybody with. So I thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate you being able to listen, and I look forward to hopefully seeing everybody again at some point again. So thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for having me. I second that. Knowledge is power. That's one of the things, especially in health, that I constantly kind of push for. We don't know what we don't know, but when we do know, we can take it and we can run. And that's all I've done with my life and how I've gotten here. So I just provide the information that I know people are earning for. So again, I thank you for allowing me to share my knowledge, and I hope you guys have taken a little something from what I said today.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. This has been an awesome, amazing experience to be able to participate and to be able to take part in listening to each and every presenter. For myself and the faith community nursing, please reach out to us if you know anyone that, who's connected to their faith community, but their faith community may not be knowledgeable or understanding of what a faith community nursing program looks like. Have them reach out to us. I put our email in the chat. We'd be more than happy to help initiate that within that health ministry.
Thank you all so much. And I just want to read this quick message from Branda Pearson, who honestly, like, this whole series would not have been possible without her. And she just says, "Good night, everyone. Great program. Thank you for the work you all do in and for the community." And I would love to extend that to you as well, Brandis, because I know that so much of the work and the connections that happen, not only just for this moment, but across our community, are because of the work that you do as well. So thank you so much for all of you for creating and holding community and for participating in this ephemeral space that we were able to make on occasion of the Women's Wellness Center, Black History Month, Heart Month, and the opening of our virtual Y. So it's the party that we couldn't have in person, and I'm really glad that we were able to do it together over the course of this month. So all right. Well, I look forward to seeing you all again in one way or another. And I hope you all have a lovely night and take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.